Hi, it's Dave. So I'm here joined by James Douma, and we're in the middle of a multi-part series unpacking Andrej Karpathy's recent talk about Tesla full self-driving progress. However, I want to interject with the interlude here. And I had this thought a day or two ago, and I wanted to pass it by you, James, hear your kind of feedback and discuss it a bit. So the idea is, as Tesla doubles down on vision and is solving, let's say, full self-driving, autonomous driving, what it's also doing is it's solving a myriad of various safety features as well. For example, you've got the whole, people claim to have unintended acceleration when they're going into a parking spot, and instead of hitting the brakes, they accidentally hit the acceleration, and then they're going through a wall or something. Like, actually, Emmett Peppers, his mom did that at his house like a few years ago. Like, she was coming into the garage, and instead of hitting the brakes, she floored it, and basically she took the Model X Performance version right into the house, right? It was crazy. But yeah, there's so many examples of that, right? But it seems like in Karpathy's talk, he gives a few examples of they've learned how to basically mitigate that, right? By seeing what's in front of them, right? Contextually, is it a person? Is it a bridge or water? And then is able
behind
to,
you.
Is able to stop. But this stuff is actually quite complex, it seems. It seems like it's not just a simple radar, there's something. It seems like it's analyzing what's there, right? The object, etc. And the thought I had, which is, as Tesla is solving and progressing toward autonomous driving, it's actually also improving just active and passive safety features, non-autonomous driving safety features immensely. And it's to the point is I wonder if this is going to be a big competitive advantage for Tesla's non-autonomous driving
funny.
vehicles.
I was thinking almost this exact same thing this morning, which is that, we're really, as a community, we're really fixated on FSD because of the promise of, like all these additional revenue streams and the safety and all that kind of stuff. But on the way to FSD, right? Like, if you have the technology that the car can drive itself safely, you also, for free, you get the technology to have a co-pilot that's always watching a human driver and not letting them make simple mistakes that like driving your car. I mean, so Karpathy had a couple of examples, and one of them was the guy, like, he's parking next to the lake, right? And he accidentally floors it just as he wants to stop. And so basically the autopilot ignored him hitting the accelerator, and it saved this guy's car from like jumping into the lake, right? I mean, there's so many examples of that kind of simple mistake that people make. I mean, pedal misapplication is a biggie, right?
Yeah.
But they're, accidentally backing over some object that you saw and didn't pay enough attention to, right?
Yeah.
Is a tragically common, cause of fatalities for pets and children.
Yeah, because the idea is, like, over the past few years, I've been noticing my Model 3 is getting like better at the safety features. Just like the car in front of me, if I kind of go too close, too fast, I need to stop. Yeah. Or if I'm trying to change lanes into another lane and there's a car there, it'll beep or something. But I'm noticing, I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty good. But then I'm thinking, like, if we just think about all of these advancements with full self-driving and even what Karpathy's talking about in his talk, but apply it to just, all of the safety features, we're talking about better automatic emergency braking, right?
And this is part of autopilot. So like everybody gets this for free. You don't buy FSD,
exactly,
but you still might get a car which is shockingly safer than any other car.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing. Every Tesla ships with this full self-driving computer that's monitoring the situation at all times with these advanced neural nets, is able to perform safety functions and features that are far more effective and safer than just, let's say, the simple modules that other OEMs have. And I'm just thinking this is getting better, and better, like by updates. So my 2017 Model 3 is just getting better and better safety-wise. I'm thinking, at what point does this become like a really big competitive advantage? Like, you don't even need to buy the full self-driving package. Just take a standard range, bottom trim, like, Model 3, but it's getting superpower safety features that other car companies just can't compete with. And when do people start to realize that this is actually a huge value?
When do they realize it? That's an interesting, so imagine, for the sake of argument, that that they roll the pseudo lidar out, and over the next year they make it pretty close to perfect. Like it's really doing not pseudo lidar, the pseudo radar, and it's really doing what you wish the radar could do, but which the radar can't do. Is like it really accurately detects when you need to stop the car, right? So it deals with pedal misapplication. So like if they manage to do that, and the accident rate in Teslas would plummet. If it's one every 5 million miles now, if it goes to one every 50 million miles, imagine it did that, right? Sadly, I have no difficulty believing that, but because of the media and FUD environment and advertising from competitors and that kind of stuff, that could fly completely under the radar, right? Like it would be this amazing free benefit that you get from the cars that the Tesla community knows about and raves about and whatnot, but which the public at large just like doesn't know about at all.
That's true. So the other day, maybe a week ago, I was driving in the carpool lane, I think, and then the car next to me, there was like basically 50 cars like stopped, right? And this guy was going probably about 25 miles per hour, and he just wasn't looking, and just like he had stopped, but then he had accelerated again, and he just accelerated straight into the car in front of him, like 25 miles per hour, just basically ruined his car. And I was like right next to him, just like going, I'm like, oh my gosh, like he just literally just didn't see, right? And I'm thinking like that's such a common accident where you're in stop and go traffic, or you're just tired, you might be looking away or something, and before you know it, you hit the car in front of you, like it just seems like such a common thing. But then I'm sure maybe some other automatic, emergency braking features would be able to solve this as well. But it just seems like if you have the Tesla full self-driving computer, watch, as you say, you have another always 24/7 attentive driver that's kind of looking after you, over you, and it's getting better, every month with updates, and is able to handle more and more situations that are dangerous and difficult and alert you. It just seems like, this is almost a different car. It's like a car with a superpower that you really have to invest the money into that hardware, right, to get that into the cars and into the software and the whole data. It just seems like a big stack, a huge stack, and expenses that you need to invest to put it into that car that other OEMs are just, I don't know even if they have that vision or that conviction to really make the investments they need.
The business model is different.
Yeah.
There's this factoid that I love about the business model for automobiles. So that electric windows cost less to put in a car than manual windows do, right? But auto manufacturers, they go out of their way to make cheap cars with manual windows, right? They could put electric windows in those cars and it would be cheaper. Like if you really wanted to just make the car cheap, it would be cheaper to put an electric window. So why do they put the manual thing in there? And the thing is, they want to be able to access the low end of the market. They want the volume. They want to get those sales. They don't want those sales going to competitors, but they want to give every one of the people who buy that car a reason to upsell, or to pay extra for the electric windows, right? It's a revenue stream thing. So as long as this was the thing that drove me crazy about cell phones for a really long time. The first few cell phones I bought that you could take photos with, like Verizon would charge you 25 cents to get the photo off your phone, right? Or to send it in a text message to somebody. Yeah. Like you had this camera in your phone and it was right there and it was taking the pictures and you couldn't take them out of the phone because Verizon saw it as an opportunity. So the thing is, if it's 25 cents a photo, nobody takes any photos. Nobody shares any photos, right? I mean, Apple, when they stopped trying to nickel and dime customers, they opened up this whole great world. But Verizon was in this zone for a really, really long time. I mean, for several years, they were putting cameras in phones and charging people 25 cents a photo if you wanted to use it. So they made the camera useless because they had a very small number of customers that they could upsell, and they could identify that as a revenue stream. And I feel like the automotive industry is still stuck in that space, right, where they're nickel and diming themselves to death, right? They so want to look for that incremental revenue opportunity so that they have an isolated use case for justifying making the product better, that they don't make the product better. Effectively.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even know, do they still make cars with manual windows?
You can still buy
Really?
low-end cars with manual
Wow,
windows.
that's crazy, man. 2021 and
There's still manual windows.
manual
And they're
windows.
expensive, and the mechanism is expensive.
Yeah.
And the more uncommon manual windows become, the more expensive the mechanism, and they still put them in cars, right?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, drives me. I remember when Intel first started putting coprocessors. They had the 280.
mhm.
They had there was a version of the 286 processor that didn't have a numerical coprocessor, and they sold a separate numerical coprocessor, the 287, that you could get to go with it. I'm really dating myself now. And then they came out with a version of the chip that it didn't cost any more, but it had the 287 integrated into it. And for people who are doing a lot of numerical computing like me, that was great, except Intel really charged you a lot of money for that feature. They charged a lot more. But the thing is, it cost them more money to make the 286 and the 287 separately than to make the 286 with the 287 integrated, right? So instead of making a 286 that didn't have the 287 and a 286 that did have the 287, they only sold the one with the 287, but they would disable it. And they would charge you like 3 times less money, right? Like if you wanted a numerical coprocessor, you bought the same piece of silicon, but they just enabled it. And I understand in that case, like the business justification for doing it, and how, in a sense, everybody does win if you do that kind of thing. But the whole idea of building this really useful piece of functionality and then not giving it to people intentionally, right? Even though they have it and they've paid for it and it's right there and it works fine. It just, as an engineer, God, man, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, actually, like a lot of OEMs, it just feels like they would nickel and dime each of these safety features, like blind spot detection, right? Or just like this stuff.
Really?
It's like, why am I paying
for blind spot detection?
Exactly. It's insane. But
we live in a world where orphan drugs, for sick children cost $100,000 a year too, right? So
yeah. But I mean, overall, it just seems like, Tesla basically investing into the hardware, into each car, but also developing the entire stack, the whole over the updates, the training, the data collection and labeling, everything, neural nets, and to have the entire stack of hardware, software, neural nets, everything in every single car they produce. That's giving people benefit, not just with potentially full self-driving down the road, but with a myriad of features, like safety features, right?
It's going to be a huge competitive advantage over time. There's a reason why they don't have a demand problem, and they're never going to have a demand problem, right? If the product keeps getting so much better relative to the competition,
exactly,
and this will be a biggie, right? I mean, putting in these intelligent features into cars, which Tesla's so far ahead of everybody else in doing, is going to be a huge competitive advantage over time. And it's something that, like, up until this morning, I really hadn't thought about it. I mean, you brought it up in this conversation. Yeah. Like, there's this whole other space of significant competitive advantage that they're getting from putting this FSD computer and all these sensors in the car, and making this very sophisticated perception and action and planning stack to sit on top of it.
Exactly.
So that not only do you have an autopilot for your car if you buy FSD, but you've got a co-pilot to protect the driver from stupid mistakes, right?
Yeah.
That, in the long run, that's just huge.
Yeah. I'm still processing.
Like,
I'm like, oh my gosh.
How did we not notice this until now?
Exactly. I'm like, who's talking about this? Yeah. It's like crazy. Anyways, thanks, James, for this interlude. We'll continue on with our next episode about Karpathy's talk, how they basically have solved for getting rid of radar, improving full self-driving. So we'll look forward to that. All right. Thanks again.